All right. So I almost made it through the PR list today. I got very close, but not quite all the way through. I think most of it's good. So, all right, let's maybe get this started. So, it's been a couple of weeks since we last had a meeting. That was because I was in New York for the Ceph Day New York and ended up on holiday for a little bit of that as well. So, a couple of new things to discuss this week. I guess right now we'll go through pull requests. So I did only see one new one in the last couple of weeks, and this was a PR from Casey in RGW to switch back to a polymorphic executor. Mark Kogan. Oh, Laura, you lost my sound. Can you hear me now, or can anyone hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. I don't know what happened there.
Oh, okay.
Just me or what?
Who
Anyway, I hear you
knows?
now.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so there's only one new PR that I saw this week. That is from Casey for the Beast backend for RGW as to switch to a polymorphic executor. I guess switching back to a polymorphic executor. And Mark Kogan tested that, did not see any obvious performance improvements from it, but I think maybe they're still planning on switching back to it. So the plan right now, it looks like, is to wait until after Reef to do that, which makes sense since Reef is closed. So at some point we'll see that merge, but no high priority at the moment. There were a number of closed PRs, and the first one here was from Igor that Yuri merged. This got moved through pretty quickly. It was a CLSQ change to use larger read chunks in queue list entries. And I suspect that's probably a small performance improvement. But it was merged quickly, so nice. Glad we got that through fast. The next PR is a big one that we can talk about. I think I might wait until after we get through the rest of the PRs to talk about this. This is the new RocksDB update from Facebook. So I'll just skip this for now. And Laura, the next three PRs that merged were all from you. So this was the primary balance score PR, the iteration one of the workload rebalancer, and adding the ability to handle high priority operations in mClock. Do you want to talk a little bit about these PRs that you merged?
Sure. The two or it was adding a primary AK workload balance score and iteration one of the workload read balancer. Those were part one and part two of the new balancer feature in Reef, which is an offline tool that can be used with the OSD map tool to improve read performance in ideally small clusters. And yeah, this is just the new Reef feature. We'll be merging some documentation on it shortly as well. But I actually added a topic later on your Etherpad about what we can do to, because right now it's like a theoretical improvement of performance, but I'd like to see actual numbers of this improvement. So I'm not sure if you have any ideas of what we can do to, prove that the read performance has improved on any kind of setups that or anything like that. And the third PR that I merged about mClock, that was a feature of Ashwariya's that is also a Reef feature. So I don't know too much about it, but that was merged as a part of Reef's features.
Cool. Yeah, let's talk about the rebalancer a little bit more once we've gotten through the PRs here. Okay, so let's see, what do we got next? Updated PRs. There is a PR here to replace in RBD config the image context config with image config proxy. I confess I don't remember this at all. I looked at it probably once, but apparently it still needs review. Oh, yeah, it looks like it's a nice improvement from the table that they've gotten this PR here. So who is looking at this? Casey, I think they're asking you for a review, and Ilya as well.
Yeah. Uh, Ultimately, I want to make sure that Ilya is happy with it. I left some comments earlier and they weren't exactly addressed. I can follow up on that.
Okay, okay, cool. All right. What's next? Crypto, add QAT batch. Uh, this looked like it was a really, really big improvement for QAT. I think there was some reference to this being for RGW when I looked at it. Casey, I think this is another one
That's
for you,
right.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There have been some discussions on the mailing list also, and I see that the author Walang is on the call. So hopefully we can have some time to discuss this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put it in the discussion topics. Uh, okay, added. Let's see what's next then. Blue Store set RocksDB iterator bounds for the collection list from Corey. It looks like there was a QA failure on that and potentially more fixes that made it in. I don't know. Do we need a QA run for this now? Nope. Corey said, is Corey here? No, it doesn't look like Corey's here. So he said he's going to look into it and try to address them. So probably not for Reef, I guess, but that's okay. Let's see what's next. Common compressor disable busy polling in QAT. So maybe we can discuss that as well once we get to the discussion topics. Like it needs QA. And finally, for updated PRs, this is from Igor to apply the RocksDB delete range threshold on the fly. Adam approved it. That also needs QA. Let me check. I think maybe I pinged people on that one, possibly. No, I did not. But that just got added 3 days ago, so I'll just leave that for now and see if somebody picks it up for a QA run. All right, that was it for updated PRs. I think I made it about 2/3 of the way through the no movement PRs. Possible something at the end here got cleaned up by the bot or merged, but I doubt that anything real exciting was going on with the rest of these. So let's move on to the discussion topics because we've got a lot to talk about here, I think. I'll just go through a couple of really quick ones here that I don't think probably need a lot of discussion. So we merged the RocksDB update for Reef. This was kind of a tough call because it was failing our existing Valgrind tests, and Radek heroically went through and added a whole ton of new Valgrind suppressions to get it passing. I think our plan right now is basically to try to test it as much as we can for Reef through the next couple of months of QA, and if it looks good, we keep it. If we're seeing problems, we're gonna rip it back out. Radek, does that sound like your view on this as well?
Yeah, I share it. However, I just wanted to add to the part about tons of new Valgrind suppression rules. Well, I'm really not proud of making them.
Yeah.
I'm
not. Go ahead.
There are mostly, except one, I think. They are almost entirely about the setup paths in monitor. Perhaps we missed some the initialization. Perhaps that's our fault, but because of the big changes in RocksDB, now it got exposed. In addition to those init related things, there was actually one thing on the store get path. However, still looking like actually lazy initialization, basically some get or create of a statical variable. So hopefully we shouldn't see memory consumption growth, real memory leaks. Well, lethal memory leaks, maybe that way, that wording is better. Still, we really need to test this carefully. And I think that less evil is if we try to ship it as a part of major release, done like a backport with one of those minors. That for sure is not the way to go. If you want to upgrade RocksDB, it must be a big release.
Yeah, right. Like I agree with you. I was somewhat dismayed to see how many Valgrind suppressions we had to add. I'm not worried really about the configuration ones, but that other one that you had mentioned, we'll see. So having said that, everyone that's testing Reef over the next couple of months, be on the lookout for memory leaks and any other weird RocksDB issues. If you see anything, please report it.
Well, this PR is absolutely the first one to blame. We are aware about that. In case of any troubles, we will be reverting there.
Yeah, exactly.
Also to add, Yuri has been scheduling main baseline runs, and I try to take a look at each one of those, and I reviewed the most recent one, so we have that baseline to compare against for Reef. In case we see any new memory leaks. I did not see any in the main baseline, anything related to RocksDB. So I feel like it would be pretty obvious.
Cool. Yeah, and thank you, Laura, for doing that. I've noticed that you've been taking on a lot of this kind of QA stuff. It's much appreciated.
Yeah, happy to do it.
All right. So as I think that's enough about RocksDB. Let's see. Next, there was an interesting presentation at Ceph Day New York from SoftIron. They've written a new benchmarking tool in Go that uses a lot of the underlying libraries like librd and other things. It's kind of slick. It automatically populates a Google spreadsheet with benchmarking results. The one concern I had with it is that they didn't really show how well it worked at scale. They were only kind of doing small scale testing with it. So I'd like to see more big tests and especially comparisons with existing tools like FIO and other tools to see how it really compares. But it has potential. So if you're interested in benchmarking and testing, this might be something to try out and see how well it works. Would definitely be interested in hearing feedback on it. I've been in touch with Danny a little bit. He was looking for ways to do OMAP benchmarking, so I pointed him at some of the things that we've done in the past, and we'll see. So definitely, if you're interested in this stuff, check it out and report back what you find. And that's really it for what I had. Actually, I forgot. Was there anything on the PR side that I missed from anyone, or any other discussion topics to add here?
I had just added the one topic about the read balancer, if you want to talk about that here, or I can also talk to you separately about that if you'd like.
Oh yeah, that's fine. We can talk about it here. And Laura, Josh reached out to me privately and said that he's on PTO right now. but would be interested in talking more about the work you guys have been doing next week as well.
Yeah. So if you'd rather me set up a meeting between the three of us or something, that's totally fine too. I'll just, I guess, give you like an overview of what I was hoping to achieve, if that helps. So it'll give you time
Yeah.
to think, or
Well,
if
let's talk about
it'd be something possible.
sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it here, unless we run out of time. Let's just move it to the end here so that we can do some of these other ones, and then
Sure.
if we have time today, we'll do it today. If not, we can then just wait until Josh is around next week. So okay,
Sounds good.
let's move on then. We have an update from Josh here. What's going on with your guys' cluster?
Sorry, Josh, me?
Yeah, sorry, Josh B. Sorry, yeah, too many Joshes.
Okay, so I think 2 weeks ago we reported that 16.2.11 addressed the right byte amplification, but
Yes.
not the IOPS amplification. Since then, I'm pretty sure that I've tracked down where the IOPS amplification came from, and I think it's the loss of log recycling in RocksDB. They disabled that in 6.8, and of course we gained 6.8 whatever in Pacific. And because of that, every single time anything logs to the RocksDB log, it also requires a BlueFS metadata update versus before it didn't.
Okay.
And so on Nautilus, there's far fewer BlueFS metadata updates than there are on Pacific. So basically, it's like doubles the writes, essentially, right? For any RocksDB log write, there's a BlueFS log write as well. So that's where it's coming from. Not easy to solve. Obviously, log recycling was turned off for correctness reasons.
Yep.
And I remember I actually was reading your performance blog post for an unrelated reason. I came across when you talked about the log recycling being turned off, and then it like triggered my memory as soon as I saw that. It's funny because I'd read it a while ago and it just didn't mean anything at the time. So
yeah,
yeah, I did some digging in RocksDB, and like this is one of those like how much time do we want to spend on tuning BlueFS sort of moments, because my understanding is the way RocksDB actually has internal mechanisms to try to reduce this effect, because it'll actually do like an fallocate type call on the log, but we don't implement that endpoint in BlueFS today. So it would basically require it would either require thin allocation or small enough increments of thick allocation for it to work.
okay.
But basically you could tell it, yeah, anytime you're about to extend the log, extend it by this much using an allocate precall. And then obviously on a file system, it's just going to map the physical bytes in underneath the covers. You can do it that way in BlueFS, but obviously you also have to do that in big enough batches to make it worthwhile. Otherwise, we're just back where we started in BlueFS, right? So that's the RocksDB way. I don't know if there's any other tricks there, but like that's basically where it sits. So I think we're basically stuck with this level of IOPS of BlueFS unless something changes in how we manage the RocksDB logs.
Yeah, it didn't look particularly hopeful getting that re-enabled in RocksDB. As much as it would be nice, there's like only a couple people over there that even understand it. Like they went through quite a bit of effort, I think, just to even figure out whether or not they thought it was unsafe or safe, or like what circumstances it could be safe in. And
right. And
yeah.
it's funny because like my mind naively went to it's just like surely they can just write some extra zeros somewhere to make this work. But like I also know that there's smart people looking at it, so I didn't want to assume that the solution was going to be that easy. Like I think their concern is like if they're just going to scan the log, if they're reusing a log, how do you know what's new and what's old?
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's what the problem is, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
I don't know. It's just I feel like there's solutions to that problem, but again, there's smart people looking at it. So maybe the solutions I'm thinking of aren't going to work for whatever reason.
That's kind of where I've been too. Honestly, I was like, well, I don't really want to get into like an argument over this with them. And it's tough getting code into RocksDB, even fairly reasonable code. They tend to not like a lot of outside changes. I imagine this whole situation has made them even more a little bit gun shy. So yeah. Well, all right. So maybe we can figure out an alternative, like
Yeah.
you were just talking about.
So, and I mean, like, so that's still talking about like the nitty gritty detail. The net effect of this is not that big of a deal as long as you have a system that can take the extra IOPS, right?
Yeah.
And like for us, pretty much all of our hardware, except for like the very oldest SATA SSDs on the block side, um, is fine. Like it doesn't show up as far as I could tell in any sort of latency measurements or anything like that. Um, I'm far more worried about our spinners. Like we
Yeah.
haven't started updating our spinner object stuff to Pacific yet. But at the same time, like the write load on in those environments is much, much less, right? So it's like, okay, well, sure, maybe we'll like increase the IOPS by 30% to disk, but like a 30% increase on 10 or 20 IOPS isn't going to matter, right? So I don't know what the actual net effect is going to be in those areas yet. We might actually be okay. We just haven't done the analysis yet.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, and spinners, the thing I keep meaning to get to and haven't yet is just trying to see if we can increase the number of uh, operations we do per transaction in the KVSync thread. If you're on pure spinners, we're definitely seek bound. So this hurts, but maybe in general, that's another mechanism by which we can try to reduce some of the pain.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Like even if it's not a huge IOPS increase, it's going to increase the seeks quite a bit.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, I guess the other thing too is like deferred writes also just amplifies this problem because every deferred write is a write to the RocksDB log, which means the BlueFS update, and
Yeah,
then there's the
sure.
later write of the disk, like the actual content back to disk, right? So there's kind of a multiplicative factor going on there. Versus on object, I mean, there
Yeah.
shouldn't be deferred writes on S3 workloads, right? I think, at least on like pure spinners.
And actually, I have partly related question, topic for discussion. We might want to research how to disable deferred writes on spinners, on spinner-only setups, since it apparently makes no sense and just introduces additional overhead.
We should at least try it, right? Because if we don't do deferred writes, we're gonna do like a double write penalty, right, Igor?
Right, but in case, so we perform double write anyway. So yeah, if we perform deferred write, we do write to write ahead log, which is on spinner as well, and then we do another write to main disk. Apparently, this doesn't make sense. And honestly, I don't recall how it works on a spinner-only setup. So, do we really use deferred writes, or they are disabled somehow?
Well, if it turns out the deferred writes are bad on spinners, then it reinforces my belief that we should get rid of the entire deferred write path in general and replace it with something better.
No, well, they are nice if you have DB on faster drive, but if it's a pure HDD setup, then apparently no sense to perform the writes in this way.
I want to, Igor, I want to replace it with writing small extents directly to the fast device. and later on just defragment back to a single extent on the slow device.
Yeah, so that's completely different scenario when you have faster drive.
Yeah.
And now I'm considering almost obsolete scenario, but it might still exist.
Yeah. Well, Josh, thank you for doing that. It's, I guess in retrospect, not surprising to me that something like this was going to happen. We knew that when they disabled that in RocksDB, that sooner or later it was going to come back and show up somewhere. But it was easy to just kind of ignore it and just be like, okay, well, this is going to hurt, but we don't know when or where. Now I guess we found out. So thanks for doing all the work to verify that's what's going on.
Yeah, welcome. I just remembered I had one more thought in terms of like tricks we could play here instead of going the like thin allocation path. And that's every single time we map a page in, is that for a log, we actually zero it and then extend the file out for the whole page. Because really like the metadata update here is the file size update, right?
Yeah.
Or really the two things we need to avoid are like the extent map update and the file size update somehow.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that means zeroing a page somewhere, no matter how we want to solve it. So anyways, I just want to throw that out there. Like, I think there's a few options here of what we can do, but at the end of the day, it's all going to turn into we have to zero a page somewhere. So trading some extra bytes written for IOPS.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think pre-allocation makes much trouble here, since write-ahead log should be allocated in chunks longer than just a single allocation unit. If that's not the case, we should fix that, and it should be doable.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I agree. It is true, because it is chunked in, but like those chunks are not zeroed, right? Which is why we have
and if we need to, if we would like to avoid file size update on each write, then we need some tricks. Either zero blocks with zero of all these allocated blocks, and then do some smart reading, or maybe as an alternative, wrap each write with some header to specify the size of this block.
Right, yeah. So you basically hide the metadata inside the writes themselves. Yeah. Okay.
Igor, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Igor, I was going to ask, how does your prototype BlueStore write-ahead log work?
It does not use files, actually, file concept. It just pre-allocates the fixed region on the disk, and then cycle through it. It's a cycled buffer, and it wraps each write with some metadata to be able to properly detect where is the end of the log or where is the actual payload and things like that.
Do you think, does it make more sense to just try to get your write-ahead log in good shape and then just ignore, be able to ignore all the RocksDB issues?
Yeah, well. Actually, I definitely want to proceed this work, and now there is another driver for that stuff, which is I'd like to see if we able to absorb RocksDB stalls due to compaction or whatever maintenance stuff. So we definitely can see periodic high latency peaks caused by RocksDB. So
Exactly.
maybe we can try to avoid that with large enough write-ahead lock. Well, I mean, this standalone write-ahead lock. So yeah, definitely I'd like to have another iteration to that stuff.
Maybe now that Reef is kind of being wrapped up, maybe we should try to really focus on getting that working for the next release.
Yeah, maybe.
The improvements I saw with it were really good, Igor. Like it was working really well.
Yeah, but well, if I remember correctly, there were some issues which a bit demotivated me to proceed.
Oh,
But
I'll try to.
okay, that's definitely
I'll try.
not your fault. So
I'll try to motivate you.
okay.
I think it's good. I think it's a. I like it both from the standpoint that it improves a lot of things, it seemed, and from the standpoint that it makes it so that we're less reliant on RocksDB. It makes it much easier to start thinking about being in control of our own destiny.
Well, as for this double write to existing write-ahead lock, yeah, definitely I'd prefer not to change this behavior for now. Well, apparently that's the only case we get since then. I haven't heard much complaints about that behavior before. So, and the fix doesn't look trivial, unfortunately.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on specific write amp issues?
No, I think at this point it's kind of like case closed.
Yeah.
And then TBD whether this is going to cause issues for us on our spinners.
Okay.
So, well, again, for your spinner setup, I'd try to. So, if you can see issues caused by that stuff, I would suggest to try to get rid of deferred writes as a first step, and maybe this, well, would provide some relief.
And Josh,
yeah, we'll look at. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say too that if I am able to spend some time trying to accumulate more IO in transactions for the write-ahead log, that's an area I wanted to explore a little bit as well, and that might also help on the pure spinner setup.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, but on the other hand, it will rather increase the operation latency.
I'm not convinced that it will actually increase latency overall, though, because you're already seek bound anyway.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, this delay to accumulate more transactions should be done carefully. So if you are unlucky, then you might increase the latency, operation latency.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I'm not sure if it's again trivially doable to properly select that timeout for accumulation.
Yeah. We'll see. All right. Well, let's move on then. So next we have the QAT discussion. So who wants to lead this?
Thanks, Mark. I linked the PR and the mailing list thread that has some background here. Walang, are you on the call? Is your mic working? Still showing up as muted. Hope you're around. Mainly, I was hoping to have a discussion so that we can get a consensus on the design, because you guys have been doing a lot of good work, but I think there are some design level things that we want to figure out first. So I might just follow up on the list if we can't discuss it here. Long, if you're there and your mic's not working, can you type in chat?
Hey, hello everyone.
Hey, thanks for joining us.
Um, about the security. The we know the security the performance is better than CPU, and and the CPU and the security to um, to for the you mm, mm, the QT is for best performance is size is larger than um, um, 64 kilobytes. So we need to use the batch mode. In the batch mode, and this this batch mode can be the QT performance good performance good. Um, and adjust HW and use the coroutine the mode and due to its plug, so I follow the Casey's the advice. I adjust the no coroutine mode, uh, and 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 parameter. The customer should set the parameter, and the customer so with the new free instance, the code can fall back to CPU.
Yeah, I saw the updates that have the fallback if there isn't a coroutine there, and that looks fine. But kind of the second design level question that I had was if it was really necessary to do the waiting down in the plugin if there isn't a instance available at the moment. So we have the fallback to CPU in that case, but you've added a configurable to still do some waiting down there. And I'm curious how necessary you think that part is. Ultimately, I think it would be a lot simpler if we only had the CPU fallback and didn't have to do more threading and waiting down in the plugin.
Yeah, if the customer set the parameter to 0, mm, mm, once there are no free instance, it direct to fall back to CPU.
Yeah, right. So I guess what I'm asking is, how big of a difference would you see in performance here with that configured to 0 versus the default of 2 that you have in the PR?
Um, um, I tested this in my soul. It can save two core, and the performance is similar as SAL performance. Um, and compared to the previous Qt code, it it has a increased big performance.
Would you be willing to collect some numbers and share them on the PR? I'm really just trying to evaluate how much that extra complexity helps. Does that make sense?
I I test the performance such as the Qt coroutine. It uses 29% CPU, and the other code use 91% CPU. So it can save the CPU core. But the compare this pair the main function is to make the Qt performance to for utilization. The previous Qt code is poor, so it lead the Qt crypto plug is poor.
Okay, so I understand that doing some weighting down there helps with utilization, but I would like to find a way to try to measure that. Would you guys be willing to do a comparison with the default config and then compare that against the config set to 0?
No. I test it that the parameter is two, not 0. Um, because if we set it to 0, if the concavity is large, the Qt play small role in the code. So I set it to make the more requests use Qt to computer.
Understood. I'll follow up with a comment kind of trying to drill into this on the PR, but I'm really sorry I have to drop for our RGW meeting in a minute.
Okay,
I
well,
really
yeah, thanks.
appreciate you joining for the call though, Walang.
Yeah, thank you both for public discussion on it. It's really good. Um, I'll eagerly await both of your comments in the PR.
All right,
All right.
thanks. Got to drop.
Yep. See you, Casey. Thanks for joining. All right. Let's see. What's next then? We're now back to the rebalancer topic. So Laura, do you want to drive discussion on this?
Sure. And yeah, if I can kind of talk about what I'd like to see, and then perhaps I can schedule a, you and me and Josh where we can talk more detail later, because I do want to loop him in. But essentially, so the way the read balancer works right now is that it's an offline tool with the OSD map tool, or offline setting in the OSD map tool, and when you run the tool, it provides a before and after rebalance score, and it shows how, or this is part of what we implemented in those PRs that I merged. It's a score in the OSD map that indicates how well your each pool is balanced in regards to reads. And the idea of the read balancer is that it improves that score. So if the score is like 2.3, that means your pool is unbalanced, and maybe the read balancer can get it down to like 1.2, and that would be a more ideal score. And essentially what we're looking to do is prove that the score, even though the score is improving, that we're actually improving performance. Yeah, so what I'd like to do is somehow get some kind of configuration going. Neha mentioned that I might be able to do this on Giba at some point, since they might be redeploying it as like a 90 OSD cluster. But really something that would be most ideal is a small cluster with different devices, but maybe like 3 or 4 OSDs. And Josh mentioned that HDD would be better than SSD to measure performance. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I agree with those general comments. HDDs are tough. We could try to get you on one of the Inserta nodes, but I actually gave up the one that I had for MClock QoS testing. So I don't have any to give you, unfortunately. We'll have to beg somebody else to give up one of theirs. Or maybe we could steal one back from the Crimson testing, because I'm not convinced that Jenkins is actually using all of those nodes properly. So I think some of the insertion machines may be just sitting idle in the Jenkins queue. That might be an option too. But those are the machines that we have that have HDDs, and actually they have NVMe drives in them as well. So they're pretty nice they're old, but they're pretty nice if you want to kind of be able to switch between HDDs and NVMe's and just kind of see how it behaves on either. They have 6 usable hard drives and 4 usable NVMe drives in each node. So you could totally do like a 4 OSD cluster just locally using one of those.
Okay. And that's all speculation, though. Like, we'd have to see if that's possible to secure.
Yeah, but I honestly, I don't think it should be too hard. I mean, we can see if the folks that are doing MClock testing still need the one that they've got that I gave them. I think that should be Inserta 01. So they might be able to free that up so you can try it on there. Otherwise, there's a couple others. The biggest problem we had actually previously was that they were not updated to recent operating system version. So I think Adam has one that's just sitting there because no one ever upgraded to CentOS 8. So I think actually probably the biggest question would be we might be able to get you one, and then you'll have to figure out whether or not you can how to make it functional for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, my biggest questions are, or what I would want your advice on most is like what your process is for testing new patches. Since what I've seen us do with like Giba is we upgrade to you know, a specific SHA or something on a build on what am I saying? A build on CI. But I don't know what your general process is for if you want to just test something on performance. So any advice you'd have there is helpful.
Yeah. I don't know that you want a general test here. I think you're going to want to carefully engineer a test that really can showcase the effect of the primary rebalancing, right? Like, you'll have to think carefully about like how many PGs do you want to use, and do you want to test against like a really unbalanced case or just kind of a typical case? I'm guessing if you tested against a really unbalanced case, you could show a really big improvement, right? But the question is whether or not against a typical case do you see any improvement. I mean, guesses can be much more nuanced in that scenario.
Yeah.
Before we had, oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I don't know what the right way to go, because there's pros and cons to each. Like a realistic case would be showing realistic numbers of something somebody might actually see in their cluster. And then a really extreme case would be probably less likely to be seen, but it would show that huge performance improvement. So I think there's no way you can really go wrong.
Yeah. I can say that before we had any kind of balancing in place, when we were only dependent, well, not only, but when we were basically dependent on the random distribution of PGs that you got from Crush, that once you got to like 100 PGs per OSD on a given pool, you didn't really see a lot of obvious consistent improvement with like random reads if you bumped up to like 200 PGs. So my guess is that even over just a standard distribution of like 100 PGs in one pool, you're not going to see a lot of benefit. But if you're talking about like 32 PGs per OSD or 16 PGs per OSD in one pool, then that might be the case where you can start showing like, more obvious advantages.
Right, that's exactly the case that we're looking to showcase, rather than a very like Giba in its current state. I'm not sure, since it's so large, or since we have so many PGs, that doesn't seem like the exact since would be mainly beneficial to like ODF clusters.
Yeah, and historically with the standard testing I've done, I've tried to eliminate as many sources of like superfluous bottlenecks as I can. So like I usually give a really generous amount of PGs to a pool to make sure that that's not like affecting or impacting things that we want to test, like how a PR is affecting something that doesn't otherwise touch PGs. So like that wouldn't be appropriate, right? You probably wouldn't see a whole lot of improvement with your PR in that case. I think you really want to showcase this, like, okay, you've got lots of pools, you don't have that many PGs per OSD per pool. How much can the balancer help you in those scenarios? That's, I think, what you probably want to showcase.
Yeah, that sounds a lot right. Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. So I think next steps then is that hard drives seem very reasonable as a thing to test with this. So and maybe NVMe as well. So let's see if we can get you an inserter node to test on. I don't have access to the list anymore because it was on the Red Hat stuff. So we might have to recreate who's using those nodes. I know Adam has one.
Well, I should still have it, right? So I should still have it. So if you can let me know where I need to look, I can probably get the list. If it's just that you need to be Red Hat.
Assuming that they haven't like destroyed everything that was in my folder.
Oh, it was like a personal folder of yours.
Yeah, it was like my Red Hat Google Drive or whatever, or Google Sheets that got shared out to people. But it's only 8 nodes, so it's not like this is the end of the world. It should be pretty easy to figure out who's on them. So my guess is that maybe we can get you either if Adam's not using his, or that one will probably need to be reinstalled with CentOS 8 or something, or CentOS 8 Stream or something else. Or I think somebody that was working at MClock has inserted 01 now. Otherwise, we can look and see if Jenkins is actually appropriately using the 4 nodes that it has. I know it uses one of them at least, but it might not be using the others. So let's see if we can get you on one of those.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. And maybe I'll start like an email or Slack conversation between you and me and Josh. And if we want to do a meeting, we can, but we can also just communicate asynchronously if that works better.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate the help.
Yeah, no worries. All right. Well, anything else, guys, in the last 2 minutes here before we wrap up? All right. Well, thanks for coming, everyone. Good meeting, and see you next week. Bye.
Thanks all.
Thanks, bye.